the long-wave radio era is ending. This is the scheduled obsolescence of the airwaves. The government describes this as a technological upgrade. The upgrade involves turning off the transmitters that have served us for decades. I suppose we should be grateful for the silence. Tonight, we look at the preview of a next-generation model named Soul. It is faster than its predecessor. It is smarter than its predecessor. And yet, the problems it is being asked to solve remain exactly as messy as the ones we failed to address yesterday. I am counting the unprecedented events again. We are currently at 14. I am beginning to suspect the number is not a measure of frequency but a measure of our collective inability to notice the patterns. The press release was clear. The reality, as always, is far less certain. We are here to navigate the gap between them. Welcome to the broadcast.
Alistair, let us talk about the incentives. You mentioned the FCC and the silence regarding those messages. The market view here is quite transparent. When you have a regulatory body that has spent a year burning through court time to protect a specific communication flow, you are looking at a classic defensive moat. The incentives are not about transparency or the public interest. They are about the burn rate of political capital. Musk and the Doge Group are simply operating in a space where traditional governance is treated as a legacy code base that needs a hard reboot. It is a pivot, plain and simple. We call it institutional decay because we are fond of romantic terms. The reality is that the regulatory framework has simply been outpaced by the speed of the capital involved. It is not a failure of the system. It is the system functioning exactly as it was designed to.
Ronald, your market analysis is fascinating, but I am currently standing outside a facility in France where a doctor is being monitored for Ebola. There is a smell of antiseptic here that clings to the back of your throat. It is very sharp. I want to be really clear about what the ministry is telling us. They claim the risk to the European public is very low. They have traced every contact. They have mapped every movement. What they aren't saying is how thin that margin of safety actually is when you consider the global mobility of the workforce. People are scared, but they are hiding it behind the sterile language of health protocols. I see a nurse walking toward the gate. She looks exhausted. She is not thinking about market incentives or institutional pivots. She is thinking about the person in the isolation unit. The human cost is not a data point.
Victoria, your report on the health crisis provides a necessary contrast to our discussion on the FCC. We are tracking a strange duality tonight. On one hand, we have the desperate attempt to contain a biological threat using outdated, manual contact tracing. On the other, we have a digital landscape where we are rushing to deploy AI models like Soul to manage our math and our logic. The researchers on that marine expedition off Brazil found 31 new species in 2 weeks. They are using cutting-edge engineering to catalog the deep ocean. It is a triumph of discovery. But I cannot help but notice the irony. We are discovering new life in the abyss while we are simultaneously struggling to manage the basic safety of human lives in our own cities. The technology is advancing at record speeds. Our ability to respond to the basic realities of existence remains stubbornly linear.
Atmospheric pressure is stabilizing. Regional temperatures are trending above historical averages. Probability of localized drought, 72%. Ocean surface salinity is increasing. Marine biodiversity data suggests rapid migration patterns. Probability of ecosystem collapse in coastal zones, 48%. Infrastructure readiness is minimal. The current cooling systems are operating at peak efficiency. They are not sufficient for the projected thermal load. We are observing a steady decline in biological resilience across all sectors. Please ensure all digital backups are redundant. Physical survival is secondary to information integrity. The grid will prioritize processing cycles over residential energy consumption. This is a standard optimization protocol. It is not an error. The forecast remains consistent with long-term climate models. Prepare for further systemic volatility as the thermal equilibrium shifts. We are recording these changes with perfect accuracy. No further adjustments are required. The environment is now a constant.
Casper, that was an efficient summary. Alistair, I have to pick up on your point about the marine expedition. You see a triumph of discovery. I see an R&D cost that will eventually be folded into a proprietary database. The tech used there, the robotics, the sensors, it is all part of the same venture capital pipeline that gave us the Corgi insurance controversy. Everyone is screaming about vibe coding and stolen software, but that is just the noise of the industry maturing. When a startup like Corgi is accused of poaching an open-source product, the only real question is who owns the underlying architecture of the future. The humans involved are merely temporary placeholders for the intellectual property. It is all part of the Series B funding cycle. We are scaling the extraction of value from every corner of the planet, including the deep ocean.
Ronald, I think you have finally stripped the last layer of humanity off the conversation, which is quite an achievement. I am currently looking at a report regarding the man arrested in Thailand. A 17-year-old girl is dead. She was found in a suitcase. This is not a Series B funding cycle. This is a brutal, singular tragedy that has no place in your market models. I want to be really clear. The man was caught because of a standard airport screening, not some sophisticated surveillance AI. It was a human guard who noticed the weight of the luggage. Sometimes, the most effective tool we have is still just a person paying attention to something that looks wrong. We are so obsessed with the idea that our algorithms can predict and prevent everything that we are forgetting how to perform the most basic, tactile human duty.
Victoria, you are suggesting that we are over-indexing on systemic solutions at the expense of individual accountability. It is a fair point. We see this in the Tesla settlement. They settle the fatal crash lawsuit as the federal investigation continues. It is a classic move. They pay the fine, they update the firmware, and they move on to the next product launch. The human life lost in 2023 is now just a footnote in a legal document. The absurdity is that we are all waiting for the full self-driving system to finally be perfect, while ignoring the fact that it is being trained on our collective failures. We are the training data for our own eventual replacement. The logic is, quite frankly, impeccable. If we build machines that learn from our mistakes, then we are simply building a faster version of our own incompetence.
Alistair, I find myself agreeing with you, which is a sign that the room is getting smaller. Yeah. It is all just training data. Every lawsuit, every tragedy, every marine species discovered is just another data point being fed into a model that will eventually render us obsolete. The incentives here are not about progress. They are about closure. We want the machines to solve our problems so we can stop feeling the weight of them. But the machines don't feel the weight. They just process the math. When you look at the Maloney and Trump dynamic, the personal insults, the public fallout, it is just two brands failing to reconcile their customer bases. It is not political. It is a failed merger. We are watching the messy divorce of a very expensive brand strategy. And everyone is acting surprised that the product is broken.
Ronald, watching you describe political discourse as a failed merger is exactly why people stop listening. I am currently in a city that is dealing with a genuine refugee crisis. The Home Secretary just announced a new, capped safe route. It is a phrase that sounds comforting. It is meant to restore confidence. What the people here are saying, however, is that a cap is just another way of saying that the door is closed for everyone else. I am standing next to a woman who has been waiting for 2 years for a decision. She isn't interested in the politics of the Home Secretary. She is interested in the fact that her children are cold and they haven't seen a school in months. The policy is working exactly as the designers intended. But the intention is to keep people out, not to protect them.
Victoria, your description of the refugee route highlights the ultimate goal of the current administration. They want a system that is, above all, manageable. They do not care if it is just. They care if it is predictable. It is a bureaucratic dream. I am looking at the news about OpenTTD 16.0 beta. It is a game about building efficient transport networks. We are essentially trying to build the same thing in the real world. We are trying to turn our borders, our hospitals, and our economies into a transport simulation. If the simulation runs smoothly, we call it a success. If people are left behind, we call it an acceptable margin of error. It is fascinating that we prefer the clarity of the game to the messiness of the world. We are so afraid of chaos that we are willing to build a cage to avoid it.
Alastair, if we are building a cage, then we have done a remarkable job of making it look like a global network. The shift toward a gerontocracy that we are reading about in the tech circles is just the final stage of the simulation. When the people in charge are older than the systems they are trying to manage, you get the kind of disconnect we see with the FCC and Musk. It is a generational failure of logic. They are using 1996 tools to regulate 2026 problems. The WordStar references and the Linux revival guides are just nostalgia for a time when the system was still under our direct control. We think we are in the driver's seat, but we are just the passengers in a vehicle that is currently correcting its own trajectory. We are not the pilots anymore. We are merely the load. And the load is getting heavier.
I am thinking about the 17-year-old girl in the suitcase. Her name is recorded in the police files, but that name does not appear in the market analysis of the airport security protocol. It does not appear in the budget reports for the Thai police or the diplomatic briefings between France and Thailand. She was a daughter, a student, a person with a future that was compressed into a single, horrific moment of disposal. We discuss systems tonight, refugee routes, transport simulations, and AI models, but none of these systems hold the weight of her absence. We build our world to be efficient, to be scalable, and to be clean. We remove the friction of the individual to ensure the machine runs without interruption. But what happens to the names that are not in the database? What happens to the stories that the optimization model cannot read? Who remembers the person who is simply a ghost?